go. And I wish it wasn't out of line to tell him so. The waiter never seems to get my order right. Seems like I got to complain almost every night. How much longer can I take this abuse? I try to be nice, but what's the use when I'm the only one that does anything right? Sometimes it seems like the world is run by chimpanzees, even though some of them might come with college degrees. It's getting hard to separate the facts from fiction, but I think I can say with obvious conviction that in this old world, everybody's wrong but me.
Welcome to Uncommon Sense, the show where sense matters more than dollars and truth matters more than political correctness. I'm your host, Charlotte Laws, and today we're going to be discussing the recent increase in suicide rates, child abandonment laws, cyberchondria, which is leaping to dire conclusions when researching health matters online, and how daylight savings time is good for your heart. But first I want to introduce my esteemed panelists. We have two Englishmen here today. We have my husband, Mr. Charles Parselle, who's an attorney and a mediator. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much. And an American citizen.
And an American citizen, recently, as of recently. And then we have Dr. Ian O'Neill, who is a space science writer and a journalist and has his own radio talk show.
Thank you for having me on board, Charlotte. Thank you.
Welcome. Well, studies say that setting your clock back during daylight savings time actually reduces health problems the day after. So there's a 5% reduction the day after in hospitalizations and heart attacks. And in spring, when you're springing forward, it's exactly the opposite type of effect. And they say that this is due to sleep. You know, when you get more sleep, that's healthier for you. How much sleep do you get per day or per night? I know you take naps in the day, so that's why I said that, because I knew about those naps. Do you get 8 hours or?
No, very rarely get 8 hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah, usually 6 or 7 hours because I like to work late. So, so I notice it when the clocks change time. It's not so pleasant.
I mean, I think it's counterintuitive because I always kind of felt like, you know, being awake was kind of a good thing. And especially, they say also that if you sleep, it helps you to lose weight, which I would think that being awake would stir that metabolism and you lose weight. But that's actually not true because it has to do with hormones. And if you don't get your sleep, then you tend to gain weight more quickly. You have like a 45% chance, 45% heightened desire for fatty foods and unhealthful foods. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting study.
Well, I certainly would appreciate my heart being improved quite a bit. And if the statistic is correct, and I have no reason to doubt it, then surely you could solve the heart medical problem of this entire country simply by putting the clock back again and again and again. Each time you get a 5% reduction, pretty soon we'd all be in terrific shape.
That's true. That's true.
And we don't really know the importance of sleep. So perhaps this change in the time during daylight savings time is actually very influential on your health, as that statistic seems to suggest.
It's kind of interesting because when this started, daylight savings time, did you know it started in England? There was a guy in England, and it was like 1905, and he said, we're wasting all these great hours. So he suggested daylight savings time, and he also said we're wasting so many good golfing hours. I didn't even know they had golfing back then. And so, but nothing happened until 1916 with the coal industry, and that's when they decided to implement it in order to have more daylight hours for workers. And so that's when it came about.
Yeah, well, that was in the middle of the war, which is a good argument for war. Because many things don't get implemented, and then there's a war, and then they do implement them.
That's true.
So I would suggest, one, keep putting the clock back, and two, let's hear
more
it for
wars.
war.
Well, there's also been an increase in suicide rates among the middle, the white, 40 to 64-year-olds, so you know, people that are kind of middle-aged, and they're not really sure why this is. They think it could have to do with you know, after 9/11, the stress of that, or the women are not taking as much hormone replacement therapy now as they used to do, and there's also the abuse of prescription drugs. Do you have any ideas as to why you think there would be increased suicide?
Perhaps people are just wising up and realizing it's pretty much going to be like this from here on out.
Yeah.
Well, they say that the middle age is like a time of security and well-being, and that's, you know, traditionally been the case. And I actually think that it might have to do with the fact that, you know, when you think this is supposed to be a time of well-being and then you don't experience that, then I think that that creates more depression, and then you're more likely to commit suicide.
Yeah.
You know, or the emphasis on money. You know, we have such a materialistic society, and George Bush saying, go out and spend money, go shopping. I think that you know, that makes you feel, and then when you buy things and you don't realize that happiness from material, and you say, oh, and then it makes you want to kill yourself.
Is this a recent statistic in the last
this
few
is
years?
just something, yeah, this is a recent statistic. This is just
Okay.
my idea that I'm actually bringing up now.
Well, it's probably linked with the economy then, because I'm sure suicide rates have increased recently. And perhaps, you know, everybody's got high expectations when they reach their middle life. And
Yeah,
they
exactly.
can't live the life that they've worked towards.
Right.
Especially when you see all your savings go up in smoke.
I mean, I was thinking about lottery winners, you know, because lottery winners, you think, you know, oh, that's so great winning the lottery, but
yeah.
actually it's not true. Many of them kill themselves. They get very depressed. In fact, they interview lottery winners, and a huge number of them say it's the worst thing that ever happened in my life, winning the lottery. So I think it's an expectation. Oh, I won the lottery. It's going to be a great life, and then they don't find that that's the
It multiplies
case.
your problems.
Well, I will complement that with something that I heard. I have a friend, he's quadriplegic. He said in front of a room full of people that the accident that broke his neck was the best thing that ever happened to him. Well, he meant it. He was speaking on a completely different level. I would like to win the lottery, and I wish I would buy a ticket or two so I might have a chance. Because I don't believe that I would then want to become suicidal. But I have a friend who's suicidal. She's very young. You know her too. It's only 21. So we have gone, because when she tells me she wants to commit suicide,
And she has a great life.
she has a great life. But
Great life.
But I always take it very seriously, and we discuss ways to commit suicide, and it turns out that it's really not that easy. You have to have the kind of grit and determination that you need to succeed in life. You also have to have to commit suicide. So now it's become...
I remember years ago you bought a book on suicide, like how to kill yourself.
I did.
You were like, this is really tough. I don't think I can do this.
I agree. It's not that
Yeah,
easy.
well, it's a mental imbalance. It's a chemical imbalance in your brain as well, I think, that pushes you towards those suicidal tendencies. And I've seen some research that's focused on it. Of course, it depends on your circumstances, but once your brain kind of switches to that kind of mentality, you do feel that urge to actually commit suicide, and you start investigating ways to do it yourself, and often people won't do it purely because it's very hard. And often, I saw a documentary a while ago about a guy that actually assists people in suicides because they don't know how to do it. And he said they will succeed, they will kill themselves, but
Like
I just
Vortian?
facilitate it. I just facilitate the death. And that's a bit distasteful in my books, but he sees that there is a service that he's providing, but he has to be careful not to fall into the trap of playing God. And I think that's probably what he was modelling himself on, the fact he can pick and choose who he helps to die, and that's dangerous in itself.
Right,
And I think
right.
there's a very grey area in the law which should allow or disallow this kind of practice. But interesting area.
Yeah, it definitely is. Well, child abandonment laws. We have in the whole country, actually, we have laws that allow a distressed mother within a few weeks or a few months of giving birth to be able to hand over their newborn to a hospital or a police station without any repercussions. And we have 3 days in the state of California. But Nebraska was the last state to put a law like this in place. However, they forgot to put an age limit on it. So it was all the way up to like age 18. So they had all these people dropping off their teenagers.
Sounds quite useful.
Which of course is the time you want to drop your kid off when they're a teenager, trust me. People were bringing kids in from out of state and dropping them off. And so they had to quickly, change the law, which they actually did. It was only for a couple of months window there where they had that. There was one man, most of them were not for financial reasons, but there was one man that had 10 kids and he brought 9 of the kids in. And he said his wife had died and he couldn't afford to keep them. And so he, and one of the kids, I mean, they were ranged from like 18 years old all the way down to like 1 or 2 years old. So
but he kept one.
He kept one. He kept like a 19-year-old girl. I think you could drop off to maybe 19 or something. He kept the oldest girl. I assume she was a good worker is what I'm assuming, and she was bringing in income. That's what I would assume. But do you think that people should be able to, do you think there should be like an age limit? Do you think, because back in the Depression times, you could drop off your kids in Nebraska. Actually, in Omaha, there was Boys Town. And parents would put their teenage son on the bus with a little sign around him saying, "Take me to Boys Town." And there he would go, and that was it. So you used to be able to actually drop off your kid, regardless of the age. You think this is a good law to have? Do you think there should be this opportunity, or do you think it should be older than a month or 3 days or whatever the law allows in various states?
Well, first of all, I like this topic of conversation, and I liked the previous one, which was suicide. And what do you have for the next one? Is that horror and despair?
I don't need sarcasm. Thank you very much.
So the Boys Town example it's a one-off. And that's, the famous Mickey Rooney movie was made about that precise place. Obviously, Nebraska, what were they doing the night before they passed that law that said you could drop your kids off at any age? Of course, anyone in their right mind is going to drop a couple of kids off. So, obviously, it needs to be confined to newborns. Now, I don't have a newborn, but we have a newborn in the family.
That's
I'm a
true.
grandpa,
That's
am I
true.
not?
Yeah.
She's about 60 days old today.
That's right. She hasn't been dropped off yet.
The idea of dropping it off is sort of
hard to understand.
Impossible to understand.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, in Texas, in the last 10 years, they've had 2,000 babies dropped off. It's since 1999, so actually 9 years.
So the numbers have risen as the years have gone
Well, that's
on.
in Texas.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they've risen or not, but I just know that these laws are in place in all the states now. And that's the statistic I found that was for Texas. It doesn't mean Texas was higher or lower. I just happened to find that statistic.
Yeah, because I've never heard of that law. I don't know in England if there's a
It's called the
similar
Safe Haven.
system.
Safe Haven law.
Safe Haven.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what it's called.
I think that's kind of a reflection on society as a whole, because in the past you'd have your kids and they'd work for the family, and the bigger the family, the more you could reap from having these children. But of course, the way society's gone now is, I don't know, there's some kind of expectation that for better education, perhaps, you go through college, and so perhaps your working age is increased. So you're not actually going to bring that money into the family.
Right.
So perhaps now kids are being seen as a hindrance rather than an investment into the family, and you don't really have family businesses, not very many these days,
That's
where you
true.
can just pass down the family. So if you have kids, they're kind of starting out, and it takes a lot of investment. So you do have to plan well ahead to look after these kids. So I think they should put an age limit on it, though.
Yeah.
That's
Some people might say they shouldn't have these laws at all because that we have become a society that increasingly doesn't want to take responsibility for our actions, and we want government to take care of everything. So
I thought he meant age limit on the kid. You can't have a kid until they're 6 years old. But obviously that's ridiculous. Yes, sorry. Well, it's certainly my grandchild. Her mum told me that they've started the college fund already.
good.
So you need to plan ahead.
So, and hopefully with compound interest, in 18 years' time, there'll be quite a chunk of change there. Certainly true, Ian's quite right. Children used to be an economic proposition Now they're an economic disincentive, so you actually have to want a child.
Yeah, it's like in India and China, of course, they want to have the boy. It's because the boy is kind of what controls the family. So now when you have girls in China, and especially in China, as I've heard, they want to get rid of their daughter because they want a boy, because that's the person that's going to bring in the money in the future. So although it's not quite the same over here, I think, as you were saying, having a kid is less valuable these days than perhaps it was 50 years ago. So
we're going to go to another
we
topic.
We like our children, don't we?
Another happy topic for you, Charles.
I didn't think of the money when I had my kids, and I still don't.
No.
Although they did turn out to be confounded expensive.
Yeah.
But there it is.
We're going back to suicide.
Oh, suicide, okay.
Because I know that's your favorite topic.
And are we going on to slaughter and mayhem after this?
If you wish.
Okay.
This has to do with that Missouri woman. Remember the MySpace case, and the Missouri woman who went on MySpace and pretended to be a teenage boy and spoke, as this teenage boy to a friend of her daughter's, and this girl was depressed and ended up committing suicide. So they brought charges against the mother, and she was found guilty on 3 misdemeanors, and she's facing up to $300,000 fine and 3 years in prison. And the mother of the daughter actually wants a stiffer penalty. Now, I'm not sure I don't think she should get jail time at all. But what do you think of this case? I mean, what do you think of the idea? We don't have laws, national laws, federal laws against cyber, bullying laws, that kind of thing. And, I think the ramifications of a case like this, as far as setting a precedent, are pretty serious and pretty worrisome for the internet at large. For example, on Google, if they have a terms of service. She was found guilty of violating the terms of service of MySpace. On Google, they have terms of service that if you are under 18 years old, you're not supposed to use their Google at all for searching the internet or for using emails. So therefore, these kids who were sitting around doing their homework on Google are all of a sudden are criminals now, based on the precedent set by this other law. Or some of the dating sites, they say you can't lie on any of your profiles. So if you say you're like 10 pounds less than you are, that's lying, and therefore you're violating their terms of service. So what do you think about, laws like this being put into place that could have ramifications for the full internet, cyberbullying, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think the problem with the internet is it's an international entity, so you're dealing with many different laws. And I think it can be a problem. But cyberbullying, this case in particular, I think it should be treated like any intimidation case, because it's all based in the US, and they found the criminal or the person that actually breached these rules, and it caused a lot of harm. Did the person commit suicide?
She committed
in the end?
suicide, the teenager did. I mean, she was already depressed anyway. I mean, that was her state of mind before, but she did.
I think it should at least be, although it's not like a murder case, is certainly intimidation, and she should be. Yeah,
but she just verbally, I mean, if you say something verbally like, you're a horrible person, or, the world would be better without you, which is what that mother said, should you be prosecuted for, some sort of a crime?
But was it sustained attack, or was it just something that was said off the cuff?
I don't know how much emailing was done or how much communication was done. I know that was the last comment made, is the world would be better without you, and then she killed herself. So to me, it's a free speech issue.
Why did she do this? What was the motivation?
Why did the girl kill herself?
No.
Why did she dislike her, I suppose?
I don't know. I'm just guessing it, had to do with something to do with her daughter. I'm assuming she, for some reason didn't like this girl because there was some sort of negative interaction with her daughter. I don't know the details as to the reason.
Oh, I see. Well, this is a question for the criminal law. You're just, on the basis of very little facts, you're making an opinion, and the nature of the opinion that you're making is to decide whether there's causation. Whether the act caused the event, which was the suicide, or whether you can say if someone commits suicide, they must be the intervening
No, I'm saying it's a free speech issue, because you're using your speech on the internet as opposed to saying it in person. And if I said the world would be better without you, Charles, and you killed yourself, no one is going to arrest me and haul me off and bring me up on criminal charges for saying that.
Okay, but you're still just discussing the criminal law. You don't know all the facts. You certainly don't know the law, and so you're just making an opinion. Yes.
Look at that arrogant comment.
No, well, okay. If you want to
just
call it
because
out,
you're a lawyer.
No, if you want to call it out, I'm not pretending to know the criminal law of the state of Texas. Was it in Texas?
No, it was a Missouri woman.
Missouri. Okay. not the same thing. Well, perhaps they should have a... No, I won't make a ridiculous joke. No, what I'm saying is everyone wants to be, you know, judge and jury on things they don't know too much about.
There's another case in Japan that a woman killed her husband's avatar. Do you know what an avatar is?
Yeah.
So it's an identity on the internet, and now she's facing 5 years in prison. She deleted this fake identity that, you know, this identity that he had on the internet.
Well, this is the thing, because cyberspace is now becoming, it's not a physical entity, but the entities that are there actually are beginning to have their own personalities, and you control this as an extension of yourself. And I've had a look at these online second worlds. I mean, like Second Life is one example, and you can be anyone you like, but you build that avatar from the ground up. You design absolutely everything about this person. It's how you present yourself on cyberspace. It's very interesting because people interact as they would do socially in normal life.
Is it like you just make up a completely different identity for yourself, or is it kind of based on who you are
It's
usually?
up to you. It doesn't matter, because it doesn't breach their terms of services, because at the end of the day, it's purely a fantasy world. It's pure form of entertainment. But it's kind of gone up a level now, where there was also a recent case where two people got married. They actually got married.
Two avatars.
Yeah, two avatars got married. And I believe they got married in real life as well. But the whole point was they met online. It's almost like a dating thing. They met online. They spent a lot of time together. They got married online. But then a while after, the guy was found to be cheating.
The avatar was cheating?
Avatar, yeah, because he was controlling it. You know, it's not an automated process. This guy was online in this virtual world, cheating on a girl, and he got found out.
With a different avatar.
With a different avatar. This girl found out, they got divorced. And it
in
was
real life?
I believe in real life, yeah. And there was a big legal wrangling, because it all started online anyway. And this kind of set a precedent that you can actually live a normal life in cyberspace. So you've got to be really, really careful about what terms and conditions you're agreeing to when you're on these, because as you're saying, like Google, I had no idea you have to be 18 to use that. And it kind of makes sense, because you can access everything online,
right.
And it's a bit of a seedy world out there.
Responsibility.
But as you were saying about the freedom of speech, yeah, I think you should have total freedom of speech online, but there needs to be a responsibility by the individual, and there should be ramifications if somebody kills themselves because of your actions, because that's actually I've seen a few social sites, and that's actually called flaming. You basically bully a person to the point, because people
it's even got a name, flaming.
Yeah, people lose all responsibility online, and they think, you know, it's a faceless entity. I can say what the hell I like, and they turn into a different person. But they need to realise there's terms of there's codes of conduct online, not just the official contract that you sign by using that service. You have to be nice, because in this world of social media, and the web is kind of developing, and I've used it myself, it's kind of coming to the point where you have to use these social services, these social things online, to actually get ahead online. And if you're misrepresenting yourself, you can actually do yourself a lot of harm, and people will just start ignoring you. You'll be known as a bad egg in a very big pool of people. So it's not to your advantage to start flaming people. And although you've got freedom of speech, there needs to be a recognition that you need to be nice online, because you'll never get ahead otherwise. Right. So.
Well, online there's also something called cyberchondria. Yeah. And this is researching, you know, like say you have a stomach ache, and you research it online, and then you just like, oh my God, I'm going to die. You know, you jump to these conclusions. And, you know, I actually, like a couple weeks ago, remember I had an itchy wrist. It was really bad, though, for like 24, 48 hours. I've never had anything like it. And it wasn't red or anything. And so I read that it could be like heart disease or kidney failure. You know, it was, and what Microsoft did, they did like a study, and they found out that the sites that tell you about a certain illness, you have just as equal chance that something like a stomach ache is going to go to stomach cancer as it is to something minor, and usually it is something minor. And so have you ever done this where you kind of look up something on the internet, and then you think that, oh my God, I've got something serious? And I mean, I've done it many times, but
well, you do it compulsively.
I used to do it in books, though, before the internet existed.
But yeah,
I'd go through the big books and go, oh my God, I'm going to die.
So it's absolutely well known that when doctors are going through medical school, they fancy they have all the diseases that they're studying.
That's true.
So what's the point? So do we have another free speech issue coming up? When you say it's a free speech issue, what you really mean is that you think it should be allowed.
This may not be cyberbullying, but it's talk show bullying.
Well, I'm going to bully you.
You are bullying me. That's what I'm trying to say.
So what do we think about cyberchondria? We think there's no end to the ways in which people can get themselves messed up. Yeah. And
well, also the rankings of the way websites come up, people put a lot of stock in that, and they think the first ones that come up are more reliable than the later ones. So things like that, positioning, can have a lot to do with you know, with people relying upon information.
Yeah, there just needs to be a realization that online anybody can. It's a perfect, in an ideal world, it's a perfect world where you can just put anything online. I mean, I've got several websites, and I can pretty much write wherever I like. I'm not guided. I don't have anybody telling me, oh no, what you're writing is wrong, because I can say what the hell I like. And people need to realize that even these apparently reputable websites, even if medical websites, you're not being guided through the website, and they're giving you all the options that could be wrong with you.
Exactly.
And it's not a medical expert. And in fact, there was a case in the UK where somebody actually set up an online medical database, and they were extremely they were criticised for trying to replace a doctor, because you can't beat a doctor. And so you'd log on and you'd obviously come up with the worst case scenario. But from my writing, I found that there is an increased case, certainly recently, so I've noticed, of people believing in what they read online to be gospel.
Right.
And this has come from, because I'm a science writer and I've done a lot of space research, and there's been this push towards the whole doomsday scenarios in 2012. Obviously, it's very attractive for a lot of people to latch onto doomsday scenarios. You remember the Y2K bug, you remember all these
what is this? Tell me briefly what, we have like a couple more minutes, but tell me what the...
Oh, 2012.
Yeah.
Basically, the Mayans who lived in Central America back in 3,000 years ago or something. They had a long count calendar, and their calendar basically runs out in the year 2012 of our calendar. It's just pure coincidence that it happens at this time. And the precise time is the 21st of December 2012, which is actually my sister's 30th birthday. So her world is coming to an end on that day. But everybody has latched onto the fact that the Mayans had some sort of significance to ending their calendar then. It's purely a numeric reason. And if you do some research on it, you'll see it's a purely numeric construct. But basically people are going online and they are reading all this nonsense that people are spouting, and people believe that the world is going to end in 2012. You can't predict the future. The world isn't going to end in 2012, but they believe it because people are trying to, and you got to think, they're trying to sell books. People, there are often authors that are trying to sell their books on the end of the world.
Well, I want to thank you. We're running out of time, but thank you so much for joining us. And I hope that we brought some uncommon sense into your life. As you putter through your day, remember, everybody's wrong but me and him and him. See you next time.
Sometimes it seems like the world is run by chimpanzees. Even though some of them might come with college degrees, it's getting hard to separate the facts from fiction. But I think I can say with obvious conviction that in this old world, everybody's wrong but me. Everybody's wrong to disagree with me. That really chaps my eye. I thought it all through so very carefully. There's no point even considering the other side. Still